So, now that the Israelites are free from 400 years of slavery, the first thing they do is start to complain to Moses that they have no food and water. God settles this by sending manna from heaven for food. Also, God sends water from a rock for the people to have. After this issue is cleared up, the Israelites are attacked by a group of people called the Amalekites, who are descended from Esau. They manage to fight off the invasion, but God is so angry at this act of cowardice, he declares war on the Amalekites and vows to have them completely wiped off the face of the earth. After this, they go to Mount Sinai, where God instructs Moses to climb the mountain so that they can speak together. Moses goes up and receives the 10 Commandments and many other instructions from God. Moses is away for about 40 days on the mountain, and while he is speaking to God, the Israelites tell Moses' brother Aaron to build them a new god to worship because they're afraid Moses probably just died. He then makes a golden calf, and they start to celebrate it. God is angry and wants to destroy the people and start all over again with Moses, but Moses convinces God not to wipe out the people and to be forgiving. He then goes down from the mountain, and when Moses sees the assembly, he is enraged at them worshiping the golden calf. He then throws the 10 Commandments to the ground and breaks them, and then 3,000 of the Israelites die from this sin. Afterwards, Moses gets a new stone tablet from God with new commandments written on them. And then God has him build the Ark of the Covenant, and then where they can put in the 10 Commandments. He then makes the tabernacle to keep the Ark in. The Bible then goes into great detail about the laws and the custom of the Israelites, like what they can eat and not eat, and all the different types of sacrifices and celebrations they must hold for God, keeping the Sabbath holy, how the priest should enter the tabernacle and the presence of God, and all that important stuff really. After all of this, then the people start to complain to Moses again about a lack of meat and how they were better off in slavery, for at least they had more food choice. And so God is pretty upset at this, and for their lack of thankfulness. He then sends quail so that they can have meat to eat. After this, Miriam and Aaron, the siblings of Moses, speak out against him because they think God should speak to all of them and not just Moses. God is angry at them and then tells them that Moses is his friend and the only one worthy of speaking to him. He then covers Miriam with leprosy, and Moses prays for his sister, and then God heals her. After this, they finally get to the Promised Land, and Moses sends 12 spies to scout the land, and who lives there, and just kind of how to gauge how powerful they are. All 12 spies return, and 10 of them give the most alarming and negative news possible. They say the people of the land are giants, and that they are way too powerful for them to overcome. But 2 of the spies, named Joshua and Caleb, actually bring positive news, saying that with God on their side, they can take the Promised Land, and that they should probably start to get ready for battle so they can, finally take their promise. But sadly, all the people kind of ignore Joshua and Caleb's optimism and start freaking out against Moses. They claim that he only brought them there so they can die off, and that they should have stayed in Egypt as slaves. Joshua and Caleb tried to calm everyone down, but everyone just kind of keeps ignoring them, even when they're trying to remind them that they have literally God on their side. So the people are kind of tired of hearing those two, so they get ready to murder both Joshua and Caleb with stones. But before they can do this, God comes and speaks with Moses. God again says that he is sick of their lack of faith and their complacency, and that he should probably just wipe them off the face of the earth and start all over again with Moses. Moses asks God not to do that, but to show mercy instead. God then sends Moses to the people, and he delivers this message. Basically, since the people have no faith in God, they will not be allowed into the Promised Land. Instead, they will have to wander the desert for 40 years until that sinful generation dies off, and the next generation, their children, will be the ones to take the Promised Land. The only ones from the sinful generation who will be allowed in to the promised land will be Joshua and Caleb, because they had faith in God while everyone else didn't. The people are saddened by this news and just try to take the promised land then and there, but they are beaten. After this, 3 men named Korah, Dathan, and Abiram rebel against Moses. God is angry at this and then opens up a deep pit on earth to devour the 3 men and their followers, and then the pit goes on fire and the earth closes. After this, Aaron, Moses' brother and the great priest, dies. Afterwards, the people start to complain to Moses regarding their lack of water. And then God instructs Moses to speak to a rock so that water will shoot out of it. Moses is so fed up with the people that he then yells at them and calls them rebels. He then tells them that they don't deserve the blessing they're about to receive. But he then hits the rock twice instead of speaking to it, and goes against God's commandment. But still water shoots out of it. But God is upset that Moses basically disobeyed his orders. He then tells Moses that he is not allowed into the promised land and that he will die with the sinful generation. After this, the people complain to God even more, and then God sends snakes to destroy them. Moses prays on their behalf, and he makes a bronze snake that anyone who should ever look at it will be healed from the venomous snake bites. And so then they spend their 40 years basically traveling, fighting off enemies, and just trying to survive in general. Finally, at the end of these 40 years, when the old sinful generation has died off, Moses assembles the new generation and gives them his final words from God. He tells them to basically the basics, really. He tells them, don't worship other gods, remember all the victories and miracles God has given you, obey all the laws, kill all the Amalekites because God wants them dead, and remember, God will be always with them. And then he passes the torch to Joshua, who God puts in charge of the people now. Moses blesses the people, and then he goes, and then basically after he blesses them, God tells him to climb Mount Nebo. At the top of the mountain, when Moses finally gets there, God shows Moses the promised land, and Moses passes away peacefully, looking onto the land. God then takes the body of Moses and buries him in an unknown location.